Chapter 16. Rescue. On Thursday afternoon, Carl Preston met Hart in the doorway of the chorus room, a copy of the concert program in one hand, a deck of cards in the other. He shook the paper and said, "This is wrong, Hart. Can't you see that? And it's not what Ross said. Ross said I could be in the show. He said I could have 7 minutes, and look, I'm not even on the program. It's a great card trick. You should see it, Hart. Come on, let me show it to you." Hart shook his head. 7 minutes is way too long. That's like 1/5 of the whole time, Carl. Besides, I still don't get why Ross told you this could be part of the concert at all. And he said you want to wear your magician costume? It just doesn't fit. Can't you see that? It's supposed to be a concert. Listen, we'll talk about this later, okay? Carl hurried to keep up as Hart kept walking. "But Hart, you should see. It's such a great trick. And I learned it from my grandpa, and he's going to be at the concert. He'd love it. Maybe I could dress up like one of the three wise men, from the Christmas story. They were sort of like magicians, right?" Hart waved Carl off and walked down front to the chalkboard. He erased the number 11 and replaced it with the number 10, about 6 inches tall. 10. That's how many class periods were left before the concert. Hart turned and watched the rest of the kids straggle into the chorus room. Turning back to the board, Hart looked again. Still 10. A 1 and a 0. Hart could see what was coming. He could see it clearly now. 10 more class periods to prepare. Only 10. And then complete disaster. Hart Evans had been getting the cold shoulder all day. It was a new experience for him, and Hart didn't like it. After the scene with the girls out front in the morning, he had walked up to a bunch of his buddies before school. Everyone stopped talking and scattered. When he had walked through the halls between morning classes, no one smiled. No one said hello. When Hart went to his usual lunch table, it was empty, and it stayed that way until Alex had dropped into the seat across from him. Alex glanced around and said, "Where is everybody?" Hart smirked. "Haven't you heard about me in the chorus? I've become an outcast." Alex was in the orchestra. "Oh, that. Yeah, I heard." He shrugged. "So what do you care about what a bunch of idiots think? Somebody's got to be in charge. And if there are jerks around, and there are always jerks around, somebody's got to tell them to shut up and get to work." Hart smiled, and what Alex said made him feel a little better, but he still had some trouble swallowing his grilled cheese sandwich. After lunch, Hart had waved across the cafeteria to Zach. Zach turned his back and began to walk away. Hart hurried and caught up with him in the gym. He grabbed Zach's backpack and swung him around. "Hey, I wave and you walk away? What's your problem?" Zach said, "My problem? What are you, dumb? Don't you know what you shouted at Ed in chorus yesterday? I mean, it's all over the school. You said he had to sing some stupid song, and he said, 'How come?' And you said, 'Because I said so.' You said that to another kid. That's like so wrong. Kids don't say that. Only moms and dads say that. And teachers. Catch you later." And Zach was gone. A lot of kids go through school without being very popular, mostly because no one knows who they are. They pass unnoticed, unchallenged. Hart wasn't simply unknown now. He was known and actively disliked. In less than 24 hours, the most popular boy at Palmer Intermediate School had become the least popular. And that's why, 20 minutes later, standing at the front of the chorus room with that big number 10 on the chalkboard behind him, Hart Evans had never felt so alone. The bell rang, and as the echo faded, Mr. Minor walked in from the hall with a huge smile on his face. He called down to the front of the room, "Hey, Hart, it looks like a go," and he gave Hart a big thumbs up. Hart had no clue what Mr. Minor was talking about. He smiled and nodded anyway. Mr. Minor hurried through the jumble of folding desks. Looking around the class, he said, "I checked something out for Hart, and it looks like it'll be okay. The old gym is available for the chorus to use. Mr. Richards says he'll pull some strings for us. That way, the chorus can put on its own separate event. There's a stage at one end if you want to use it, and there will be plenty of room for just about anything. And the custodian said they'll set up the folding chairs any way you want. Plus, there are the old bleachers on both sides. We can even get in there and set up 3 or 4 days before the concert. Then on the night of the concert, the band and orchestra will perform first in the auditorium, and after intermission, everyone will walk over to the old gym for the chorus program. So it's all going to work out. Such a great idea." Looking at Hart, Colleen said, "You mean we can get in there and put up our decorations, and no one will even see them before the concert?" Going with the flow, Hart nodded. Colleen said, "That'll be great." Olivia jumped to her feet. "Does this mean there'll be room for our ballet dancing?" Hart gulped. I really don't know yet." Which was true. Hart's mind was racing now, trying to understand what Mr. Minor had said, trying to understand how a concert in the old gym might work, trying to figure out what to say and do next. But thinking on his feet was one of Hart's best talents, so he gulped again and just started talking, giving his mind a chance to catch up. Well, after yesterday, I started thinking, and what I was thinking was, well, and then like a sudden puff of wind across calm waters, Hart got an idea. I was thinking that we should go back, like to the beginning, because at the beginning there was an election, and everybody elected me to be the director, which was pretty crazy. But it solved the problem, sort of. Except now everybody's got a million ideas about what the concert should be like, and that's a new problem, like which ideas to pick, and it's a lot of pressure on me. Then came a stroke of genius. Hart looked toward the back of the room and nodded at Ed Farley. And I'm sorry I sounded like such a jerk yesterday. Hart paused long enough for Ed to give him a half smile and a shrug, and then he went on. So I say we should all vote about everything, like which songs to sing, what the whole concert should be like, which kids will do stuff. We vote about everything. But first, we have to agree that no matter which songs or ideas win, everybody's got to go along with the winners, the whole chorus, okay? Anybody want to say anything else? Kids began sifting the idea, and the room buzzed. Some positive noise, some negative. Even the goofers in the back corner were paying attention. Ross raised his hand. I think I know how the voting should work. It's like student council elections. First come nominations for songs or different parts of the concert. Then we make a ballot with all the nominated songs and everything. After the ballots are set, kids get to talk about which stuff they think should win. That's the campaigning. And then every kid gets to vote, but only for 6 different things. And then the 7 or 8 things with the most votes win, because the whole concert can only be about 35 minutes long. Hart waited for someone else to say something, but when no one did, he said, That sounds good to me. And then he pointed over his shoulder at the big number he'd written on the chalkboard. But there are only 10 rehearsal periods left, so we have to do this fast, like today. Does what Ross said sound good to you guys? Show of hands for yes. Almost every hand went up. Hart said, Okay, then let's get started. The rest of the period was democracy's finest hour. The nominations came thick and fast, all mixed together. For songs, for special acts, for solo performances, and Mr. Minor sat at his computer table typing everything onto a ballot. After about 20 minutes, everyone agreed there were enough nominations, and Mr. Minor printed out one ballot for each kid. Then the room was opened up for campaigning. Allie Marston stood up and said, We just have to sing Silent Night. I think it's the best song because it's really about Christmas. James Archer said, Yeah, but what about where it says the Savior is born and stuff? Maybe kids from other religions don't want to sing that. Jenna said, I'm Jewish and I don't care. I think my parents might, but not me. It's only a song. It's not like we're trying to change anybody's religion. If somebody gets mad, we can say it's just educational, learning about other religions. And we can include something about Islam and Kwanzaa too. But what I really wanted to say is that I hope we can sing the dreidel song, mostly because it's fast and funny. Carl made a pitch for his card trick, Shannon and Olivia talked up their ballet number, and Heather and Jeannie said they still wanted to sing a Korean Christmas carol. Anne said, What about the karaoke idea, where we make people come up from the audience and sing along with the chorus? I still like that idea. Lots of kids made little speeches about their favorite songs, and right near the end, Hart said, And I still think we should do the Little Drummer Boy, because the drumming stuff could be cool. With about 5 minutes left in the period, Hart said, Okay, time to vote. Everyone pick 6 things you want to be in the program. I'll come in after school and count, and Mr. Minor will check everything. And tomorrow we can see the results and start rehearsing. So everybody mark your ballots now. The room hushed, only crinkling paper and the scratching of pencils and pens. Tim Miller called out, If I mess up and want to change something, can I just cross it out? Because I'm using a pen. Hart nodded, and the voting continued. When the bell rang, Hart hurried toward the doorway and said, Give me your ballots on the way out. Tim Miller shouted, Me first! And rushed over to cast his ballot. He had folded his paper into a tiny square lump, and on one side in red marker it said, Top Secret. Hart called out, And please, only fold your ballot once. On his way through the door, Ross said, Good idea, Hart. Hart said, Thanks. Yours too. Ed Farley handed over his ballot, and in a voice low enough so only Hart could hear, he said, If Drummer Boy makes it, think I could play too? I had a couple lessons. Sure, Hart nodded. Why not? And as a crowd of girls hurried out, Hart even got half a smile from Shannon Rhoda. When the room was empty, Hart carried the stack of ballots down to the front of the room. Mr. Minor, where should I put these? Over here, I've got a big envelope. Hart handed him the ballots. Then he said, at the beginning of the period, how come you acted like moving the concert to the gym was my idea? Mr. Minor smiled and said, how come you didn't stop me and tell everyone that you had nothing to do with it? Hart grinned. Because I was dead meat, that's how come. I needed all the help I could get. Still smiling, Mr. Minor nodded. Exactly. Well, it worked great, said Hart. So thanks, a lot. You're welcome. Mr. Minor paused a moment and then said, but next time you need help, remember to ask. I said you could count on me, and I meant it. Hart nodded. Okay, I'll remember. He picked up his backpack and started toward the door. Then he stopped and said, how'd you come up with that idea, moving to the old gym? It was Mr. Minor's turn to grin. Simple. I've been learning a lot of stuff this past couple of weeks, so I just asked myself, if I was as crazy as Hart Evans, what would I do next? Hart laughed. Right. So I'll see you after school to count. And he hurried out to get to his next class. Mr. Minor sat at his desk and opened the big drawer. From a file labeled large envelopes, he pulled one out and began stuffing the ballots into it, slowly shaking his head, a smile still on his face. A few short weeks ago, he had hoped Hart Evans would fall flat on his face. He had wanted the kid to hand the concert back, sit down, and shut up. Earlier today, as he had talked with the principal, and then with the gym teachers and the custodians, Mr. Minor had realized how important this concert had become to him. He wanted it to be a success. None of this was about him. Mr. Minor could see that now. In 2 weeks, this wouldn't even be his school anymore. But after those 2 weeks, the kids, including Hart Evans, they would still be his students. And this concert was their concert.